Shortly, I'm going to run through a presentation. Because you're here, the topic, which is around how to manage, I guess, escalations and to de-escalate some interactions, and also how to do that using empathy has interested you, and hence why you're here. I won't kind of restate that we've been, through probably the most challenging times in the past 2 years, and certainly within the hospitality industry. That's tested most of your resilience, and earlier this month, of course, we had changes to the border, and as a result of that, we also had some changes in terms of venue. We've had to navigate challenges of people showing certification, people choosing not to be vaccinated, and how we navigate that in the world, which is predominantly about being hospitable, caring for people and for them to have a good time. There's also, for many people, been really challenging where you come into hospitality in order to say yes to people, and they're often on holiday. You're wanting to say, yes, we can have a look at that. And of course, what COVID has brought along is, for many of you, is having to say no to people, and that's quite different. And I remember somebody recently said having to relearn saying yes to people as we open up again. I'm going to move across to share my screen. I'll talk probably for around 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes. What I am going to ask, though, is that as I go through that, people just identify at least one helpful tip from today. And you may want to share that at the end. One thing that you think as you go back into your work or your family or personal life, that you're able to go, that was kind of really helpful to think about an interaction with particular people. So I'm going to go with the screen share, and hopefully this will all work okay, but I'm very confident Paisley will let me know if it's not the case. How's it looking there, Paisley? Thumbs up. Okay. So welcome to for 2022, the first of 4 so far scheduled mental health sessions. What we do know is that we want to give mental health the same priority as physical health. That the 1.5 kilos that kind of sits in our amazing helmet on our head called our skull is not that much different to other physical body parts, a muscle, heart, etc. We know that when it's under strain, it shows. We know when it's under strain, it's not functioning at optimum. And the Healthy Mind menu is about making sure that we look after ourselves and other people so that we can be at our optimum. Okay, when we kind of put things out there, one of the things that people had asked about looking at was de-escalation and conflict, and how we connect kind of through empathy. Seems a lot to cover in 20 minutes, and so a lot of these things will kind of be bite-sized. First thing I want people to think about, which is called the context triangle. So when you're having an interaction with a person, there are 3 elements. There's you, and you bring your own values, lenses to that. There's the other person, and then there's the context. Now, the context becomes really important of why are they there and why now? Now, this could be somebody who's staying at a hotel, or somebody who's visited your hospitality venue, and it could be somebody who's starting to get whether they're unhappy or dissatisfied with what's happening. And what we need to understand, though, is what's the context? What is it that they came here for? What is it that they were wanting to get from this interaction? The same as if it's an employee, thinking about, okay, why are we having this conversation now? what is it they're wanting to achieve from this. So always thinking me, them, and also the context of the discussion that's taking place, or in this instance, the escalation. We don't have, to be honest, a whole lot of control over too many things. We don't have control over how hot it is today. I don't have control over your thoughts, and nor do I have control over your actions. However, what I do have control over is my thoughts and my actions. Now, within any kind of interaction, whether it's an escalation or not, we have to think about how can I position myself. And a lot of the presentation today is about giving you some skills around how you position yourself in any interaction, but more specifically one that may be leading to an escalation. One of the first things I explore with new psychologists, when we kind of say, you know, interact with people, be person-centered, non-judgmental, etc. To make that really tangible, what we teach is curiosity. And it's probably the greatest skill that you can have if you're certainly in a position of escalation or of any interaction. And that is to be genuinely interested in understanding it from the other person's perspective. Now, there may be a scenario of which somebody says 2 + 1 = 3, which is correct. And they may say, I'm finding this shift really easy. And another person may say, I'm finding it really hard. 90 - 30 is 60, divided by 20 = 3. So they are both correct. What we're wanting to do in an interaction is move to a position of curiosity, where even for us, it might be a mandate and it seems really simple, and yet the person who comes and presents has the second equation there. And what we're wanting to do is, look, this is what's required, and then say, let me know what you thought. Did you understand the mandates to be something different? And they may share that, and we may come back to, look, I'm really sorry, but this is what's required at the moment. But I understand that from what you'd heard that this is what you'd be allowed to do. So this is called validation, and like I said, is being curious. I'm really wanting to understand it from your perspective. And in this, we don't have to lose our position. And we may actually come back to it with an apology of saying, I understand that, it is hard, but what I'm needing, you know, is for you to do this, 2 + 1 = 3. Or it may be an employee who's escalating and you say, okay, I'm really good to know that. I hadn't realized that that's how it felt. It sounds a little bit more complicated than what I thought. Give me some time and let me have a look at that, and go away and have a look at that. So curiosity, in actual fact, leads to empathy without actually needing to be empathetic. If you said, what is it to be empathetic? So maintaining that curiosity without necessarily losing your position. The other thing I want you to hold in mind is, back in the 70s and 80s, there was a really helpful model that we still use today called transactional analysis, but you don't need to know about that. But what it says is, within each one of us, we kind of have this kind of internal positioning of either kind of a parent, an adult, a child. Now, even in some adult relationships, we find that one does a lot of the work and they feel like they're parenting the other adult. Sometimes people often say that's the male, and they have 3 kids in the family, one being the husband, and but maybe that's just my world. But nonetheless, we have these 3 positions, which are all important. However, in an escalation, what we tend to find, an escalation is when 2 people get caught up in bouncing between the top position, either the aggressor or parent position, and that goes up and up and up. If there's a position of conflict, you usually find one person has positioned themselves kind of in that aggressor position, talking down to people, raising their voice, being angry. What we're aiming for is to come to that adult position. And for working in the industry, or for anyone, is how we hold that adult to adult. And that comes back to, I understand this may be difficult for you. I just need to restate that we're not able to let people into the venue unless they have this, this, and this. Now, the person may continue to kind of escalate, and you hold that position, you say, really sorry. And what we're wanting is either them to move to the adult position, what do I need to do? Or alternatively, they might just go, look, sod this, and walk off. And we go, okay, that's up to them. We can't control for their actions. So positioning yourself kind of in this adult role, which is really hard because people will try and pull us out of this. And the adult role, we have on our side policies, procedures, mandates, legislation. That's where we hold this particular position. The goal of this is that when we're first involved in an escalation, there's a couple of things that can happen. Is people raise really high, raise their voice, get angry. They can then move down of kind of like, look, this is rubbish. Why should I have to put up with this? And they keep doing this fluctuating. What we're wanting to do is just hold that steady line. And again, coming back to, look, I understand that was your understanding, but I'm sorry, but we can't let you in. These are requirements. If it's an employee, you might go, look, thanks for sharing that. I get more of an understanding. Let's see about what we can do in order to get an outcome that works for both of us. So by holding this steady position, and I'm going to explain shortly how we're able to do that, what we're wanting to do is to move these ups and downs that a person brings to us, and so that they kind of steady. So holding that position, and again, in the adult role is we want to deliver that with kindness, and that's really important. Even though people will test us, is again kind of saying, look, we're not able to do that. I understand. No, we're going to need to ask you to show your vaccination status. What I'm hoping is in about 10 minutes or so, and we have some question time, and one is perhaps how you might apply this, or even sharing scenarios so that we can talk through how you're able to position yourself with curiosity and also within that kind of steady adult position. Okay, how to go about doing that. On your screen, you'll see some pictures that many of you have probably seen before. We have on the left the old and young lady on here. Some of you will see the young lady, some of you will see the old lady, some of you will see both. On the right-hand side, again, you'll see a picture of which some will see a set of eyes. For others, those eyes will be buildings in a small town on the side of a hill. Some will see some lips, and others will see a lady with a child stood next to them. So what this is it's what we call set shifting. It's kind of the ability to move from one perspective to the other and to be able to see it from the perspective of the other person. The most important element of this is what's called the detail versus bigger picture. I'm going to move the slide now, and there may be a few of you still staring at the picture going, but I can't see the old lady, or I can't see the young lady. Apologies for that. This isn't so much of showing you each of those, but is more that we can shift our perception. But we need to think about this concept of detail versus bigger picture. Okay, so let's say an adolescent doesn't pass an exam and they feel like they're not going to amount to anything, they'll never get work, they'll never get into uni. So what they're doing is focusing on the detail. It's one exam. It isn't going to impact their academic career generally. and we have to move to the bigger picture. Hang on, this is one of many. What would you need to do to improve next time? If we focus on the detail when it's a bigger picture moment, it creates distress. Similarly, if we focus on the bigger picture, if you have to pay a electricity bill and you focus on the bigger picture and kind of think that somewhere out of the clouds that will be paid and you won't have to worry about it, it's going to cause some distress because your electricity will get cut off. However, how the brain works is predominantly to want to be in the bigger picture zone rather than the detail. And the bigger picture zone is around, let's see what we can figure out. Look, I'm really sorry that we're not able to do that. Perhaps if you go away and are able to find your certification of vaccination, I'm really sorry, this may change over time, but we do need people to be vaccinated in order to enter the venue. So that's bigger picture. The detail would be more kind of like, well, how many times have you been told on the news? This has been put out on every website, and with you're going to get into a tension around the detail. You want to kind of go, it is how it is. We do need to see that. I'm really sorry, but we're not able to resolve that here. I'd suggest you go and have a look at what some of those options are. The same as if it's an employee and a glass breaks, and one manager may go, how many times have I told you? And it's not that hard. Rather than then, that's going to create some degree of tension, and it can escalate. Rather than positioning yourself, which is, it's one glass, we have many, this has happened a couple of times, let's see what we can do in order to prevent it happening some other time. So the trick is knowing when to focus on the detail, but mostly going to the bigger picture. And the bigger picture is what gives us greater opportunities. So some of the things we kind of covered is that in all of this, what you control most of all is how you position yourself. Remember, in any escalation, there's a context. Endeavouring to position yourself in kind of that adult position to hold the steady position, and not getting caught too much on the detail, but trying to open it to the bigger picture that creates opportunities for the other person. Okay, some de-escalating rules, or the de-escalating rules. Many of you, if you've done any Communication 101, would hear this old kind of cliche, we've got 2 ears, 1 mouth. Let's use our ears more than we are using our mouth. However, in general, people generally do the reverse. So one of the rules, and it's kind of from motivational interviewing, is resist telling people what to do. Then you should just go and have this done. And in an escalation, what we're wanting to do is provide options. And again, it may be, you may want to think about, so using questions such as that. Perhaps understand the person's motivation, and depending on the escalation, because you might go, of course I understand that you want to see your family member, and that's legitimate. However, we're not able to allow that to happen at the moment. Well, this is terrible. We're under a controlled state. It's no different to North Korea. It is like, look, I get that, but nonetheless, we have to be guided by these guidelines because they're what provides us with safety. But of course, we would all want to see our family. The listening with empathy is where we bring in the curiosity. So you understand that position, and then is there something else you may be able to do? Is there, perhaps could you call your family member? So we kind of wanting to have that curiosity. How long is it since you've seen your family member? 2 months? Wow, that's really hard. understand that. I'd be keen to see my family as well. However, we're having to abide by these, what we put in place. And we come back to what else could you do in order for this to happen? What else would you like to do? What else would you be able to do? So de-escalating rules. So try not to tell people what to do, but try to offer them some alternatives. Once you offer some alternatives, you reduce that likelihood of moving between two escalatory positions. The other, using your oars. What happens in an escalation is you find that you're at odds. And what we're wanting to do is paddle in the same direction. And one person, often a manager or a parent or a leader, is to take the position where you hold that steady position of being an adult. I'm going to come to some open-ended questions shortly, because open-ended questions very quickly kind of reduce an escalation. The other is affirmations, and that can be, I understand it, yep, I know that you've put a lot of effort into this and appreciate that. However, we still need to have a look at your work performance, etc. The reflective listening, and again, it's much harder than it says, but it's how you put that back to people. It sounds like you've been doing it really hard. That must be really tough. Let's see what we can do to maybe make it feel less hard. And then in terms of the summarising, I know that you're really keen to see your family. I understand that that's important to you, but in order for that to happen, we'd need you to be vaccinated. What I suggest is perhaps having a look at these websites and them figuring out what you can do. So wanting to hold that steady position with kindness, compassion, but then also wanting to leave the person with some options. As I said before, sometimes with this you'll have the person who just gives you the old FU and marches off, and with kind of go, okay, look, that's you can't control for that. But what we're wanting to do is for them to explore other options other than the one that they've found themselves in the escalation. Okay, open-ended questions breed curiosity. Again, they're harder than they sound, and it comes back to that, recognizing the context, and that one person's equation may not be as straightforward as ours, 2 + 1 = 3. So then we want to open those questions up from the person's perspective. Can you share some reasons why you want to cut your hours down if it's an employee? Could you share with me why this is so important? Depending on the situation, if it's with an employee or you can ask sometimes of like, look, what would you like the outcome of this to be? Well, I want to get into your venue. Look, that's great, we'd like you here. However, we're not able to allow you in without proof of vaccination. So sometimes you may not use all of these, but instead what you come to is that one, what would you like the outcome to be? And generally, if there's some legislation in place, what we do is that moves back towards the person. Well, in order for that to happen, really sorry, but you would need to show us your vaccination. An escalation or at work, or conflict at work, was asking the person, look, what would you like the outcome to be in this discussion? Well, I'd like to feel more supported. Okay, and feeling more supported, what would that look like for you? Well, maybe recognition on a particular shift, and go, okay. And then you determine whether you're able to put that in place. Sometimes, though, for asking people and making changes or employees, a nice question is kind of saying, are there any things that may make this difficult for you? And it may be, change of shifts, or wanting to see an improvement in performance. And so we use those open questions, and to understand what may get in the way of a particular outcome for people. So open-ended questions, really helpful. Okay, as we're coming kind of towards the end, and I realise it's about the 25 minutes, happy to go over any number of these elements in questions and discussions. And I know I've got a couple of colleagues from the Healthy Mind menu online. I know we're also going to hear from Michael Andrews shortly, just around some of the current mandates. And following that, more than happy to hear particular scenarios or people's questions. We are the Healthy Mind menu. If you've been on site, been on our website, what we ask people to do is to use that for yourself. The 5 components of the menu are what helps the 1.5 kilos, this amazing structure called our brain, to function at optimum. As many of you would have heard, about 40% of that is sleep, and then nutrition, and obviously connectedness, relationships, physical activity, and downtime. Pick out your own ingredients, build your own Healthy Mind menu, and then we look forward to also people kind of joining the next sessions. We'll run throughout the year. We have session 2 on April 21st. You can also have a look at our Facebook page, our website, and yeah, there's a wonderful workshop online as well. On that note, though, we've still got plenty of time for questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to hand over to Michael Andrews, who can give us a bit of an update just on COVID mandates, and then look forward to the discussion. Hi, Michael.
Chris,
I think you're on.
Hi, thanks for that. Okay, so as Paisley said, my role at the AHA is I'm the Membership and Licensing Manager, and recently, in the last 2 years, I've become one of a select group of COVID experts, and in deciphering the various directions that come out. One of the key issues that we face in relation to the mandates is, I guess, the changing nature of those mandates. So, they change on a fairly regular basis, and sometimes they defy common sense, in that there's different sets of rules for different places that like I said, don't really make a lot of sense, or may not even pass the pub test. And that's where a lot of the, I guess, misunderstanding and conflict can come from. If I can just, I guess, before I get into the current set of mandates, because they do change so regularly, there's a lot of what Chris is saying in relation to asking open questions, and showing empathy with a person's position is very important, because it's changing all the time. It's they're very much shifting sands, I suppose, in relation to what you can and can't do, and where you can and can't go. And but there's some things that remain the same, and one of those is the Liquor Control Act. And it's important that you, as a person who is a member of staff in a licensed premises, have the right to refuse entry or service to any person for any legal reason. So really, regardless of what the mandates might say, for example, if somebody is quarrelsome or argumentative or disorderly, then you have a right under the Liquor Control Act to request that person to leave the premises, or even use reasonable force to remove that person, whether it be you or somebody else who actually physically removes them. So, and obviously that's I guess a stop of last resort, but you do have the law behind you. And there's a number of steps that I guess you need to be aware of, both prior to and following. And of course, the first is to try and de-escalate that and to get the person to leave the premises without any real issue if they're not able to come onto the premises. So, and the first of those is understanding what the current mandate is, because as I said, it's very much shifting sands. So the two main points of contention that I hear about, because I get a lot of calls from members asking for explanation or clarification as to what the restrictions are. The first of those being currently the mask wearing, and the second most common would be the proof of vaccination requirement. So I'll go to the mask wearing first, because there's a cohort of people who don't want to wear a mask or refuse to wear a mask. So the current mandate or direct set of directions do require that a person wears a mask at any time when they're inside, unless they fit one of the exemptions. And it's important that you know what those exemptions are. And I mean, the AHA, we send out regular bulletins to all of our members. So if your venue is a member of the AHA, it's good to be across what those requirements are. Or you can go to the government website to see what those requirements and those exemptions are. So the most common exemption is, or that people will try and use, is they have a medical exemption. So a physical or even mental illness that does not allow them to wear a mask. And that can be valid. It can also be dubious. So there's a number of exemptions that you can pretty much download off the website. The directions do spell out that it must be a medical certificate from an Australian medical practitioner, so not something you've downloaded from an American website. So there's no set format for a medical certificate. It's much the same as you would get from a doctor if you were to take a day off work and your doctor was to write you a medical certificate. So they can be valid. At the end of the day, in a hospitality situation, you're only really requiring somebody to wear a mask when they don't have a drink in their hand, or they're not eating or drinking. If they're standing up, walking around, then they should have their mask on, unless they have a valid exemption. So the right that you have under the Liquor Control Act is to refuse somebody entry who doesn't meet your dress code requirements. So a mask can be part of your dress code requirements, but those dress code requirements need to be displayed at the door and be reasonable in the circumstances. Your right under the Liquor Control Act to refuse somebody entry extends to, as I said, any valid reason, legal reason. So I'm seeing, or have seen over the past 6 months, a number of claims of discrimination, where people are saying they've been discriminated against because they can't wear a mask medically. So if they have a medical exemption, then that could lead to that if the person was refused entry. It's important that you fill it in a hospitality venue where you have refused someone entry. It's important that you fill out an incident report following that, and detailing what happened, and that can be used in defence against any discrimination claim that does come your way. The So in the early days of the vaccination requirements and the mask wearing requirements, we had a fairly common response from what I'll term the anti-vax movement, in that the directions aren't a written law. Some of you may have seen the video of a guy who got refused entry to a Fremantle venue, and he was requesting to see the written law that required him to show his proof of vaccination. It's while it's not a law as such, not legislated, it is a legally enforceable set of directions that are mandated under law. There's two separate areas of law, one being the Emergency Management Act and the other being the Health Act. So that's where the Chief Health Officer and the Commissioner of Police are empowered under those two acts to state what the directions are under the current state of emergency. So I'm guessing most of you realise we are still operating under a state of emergency, which means those two officers hold pretty much all of the power, even though it appears that these directions are coming from the government. They are essentially being, I guess, empowered under the state of emergency or the Health Act for the Chief Health Officer and the Police Commissioner to essentially write the rules, and you're obligated to follow them. So when Chris was talking about open-ended questions, a lot of the information that people are getting are coming from international websites, right? So it's a good open-ended question when somebody tells you that it's not the law or they don't have to follow it. A good question is to ask them what their understanding is of the directions, and a secondary backup question, once they've answered that, so you stop and listen obviously, is to ask them where they got that information from. And then depending on the response, really it comes down to empathising with their point of view. You've all had to be triple vaccinated as people working in hospitality, and as am I. So there's you certainly have a point of empathy there, in that you may not even have agreed with the mandate to be triple vaccinated. It's but it's required for you to keep your job. So you certainly have a point there when saying that you understand how people feel, because I'm assuming that a lot of you do. So when I guess the key thing for you when you're responding to their point of view, on top of the empathy, is to be very sure of what the rules are. That's imperative that you have an understanding of what the rules are and the requirements are, and then explaining when you're explaining what they are, what the repercussions are for you and for the patron, because these directions do place very heavy fines on individuals. $50,000 for a breach of directions is the maximum fine. So, and that can be on you. It can be on both you and the patron if those directions are breached. So, I guess it's a matter of being very aware of what those directions are. So currently, those directions are patrons are required to wear a mask in all indoor areas whenever they are not seated and or eating or drinking. So there is a seated requirement here at the moment. We're hoping that will be lifted in the next couple of weeks. But the seated requirement is ceased consumption. Even though the state seated service, seated consumption means, seated service definition means that they must be seated in order to consume. Whether that be food or beverage, and that's non-alcoholic beverage as well as alcoholic beverage. These rules actually apply in cafes as well as licensed premises. They don't just currently apply to licensed premises. There's also currently a limit of 150 patrons per enclosed area or separated area, whether that be inside or outside. So, and that requires a those areas to be physically separated from one another. So there's a lot of questions that arise out of those mandates, and the mask wearing requirement is actually only all of the onus is on the individual who refuses to wear the mask. So for you as a staff member, you're required to wear a mask at all times. Patrons are required to wear it unless they're eating or drinking. All of the onus, there's no onus on you if a patron refuses to wear a mask. It's all on them. And if police come in and somebody's refusing to wear a mask, then you can ask the police to let them know that they're in breach of the regulations. It's not all on you. I guess because it's all changing all of the time, it's important to stay up to date, I said. So not only the bulletins that we send out, but if you require an explanation or clarification, then if your your venue is a member of the AHA, then you can call us, and it'll probably be myself that picks up a phone on the other end to explain what the directions require. And we're going to go into question and answer fairly soon, are we, Paisley? So if you do have any questions now to ask, then now's the time. I might be able to answer it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike, and also thanks, Chris. Now, guys in the group, thank you for participating and joining in today. You'll notice that in the chat group, I have posted in there, if you'd like to share something, please just write your name or feel free to unmute yourself if you do have any questions or you would like to share any relevant scenarios that you have personally experienced, and we can go from there. And you can direct those to either Michael or Chris. So Wayne, who is the Healthy Mind Menu chairperson, has just said in the chat, knowing the rules would certainly give confidence before asking questions to de-escalate. And where else can the rules be found?
So the rules can be found on the government websites. Like all government websites, there's a bit of a rabbit warren to find your way around. You can read the actual directions, but the directions are fairly complicated and convoluted in the way they're written. And they often require reading in tandem with other sets of directions and different definitions within the directions. So probably apart from the information that we put out, the questions and answers are possibly the best first stop, I suppose, to have a look at those. And from your employer as well. I mean, your employer will have an idea of hopefully of what's required. So that's probably your first stop. I know if you're going to turn to Facebook, don't just turn to your mate's Facebook page or necessarily WA bartenders, although some of the information that gets put out there is certainly accurate, but it's not all accurate. The Premier's Facebook page is not a bad place to go either. So, a few different options.
Thanks, guys. Okay. For whatever reason, there's no other questions in here. Thank you, Wayne. As mentioned earlier, yes.
Oh, am I, Michael? I'm not being in the hospitality industry, but I found it really helpful when you said, look, wearing a mask is just a dress code requirement. And even that shifted it with me of like, okay, that makes it easier for me of understanding that as a patron. So thank you for that. So that was very helpful. I think the other thing I found helpful is, so this isn't the person who's putting this in place. You reminded me, oh no, we're in a state of emergency. Not to forget about that. And so we're required through these, whether we agree with them or not, kind of through these legislations. And I like when you kind of said, sharing, look, this has an impact on me as well as you if I let you in. The breach, again, that you're kind of joining with the person of saying, look, because underlying that is kind of like, we're not doing this to make your life miserable. it is how it is, and it impacts me as well. And I think that was kind of nice, just to, you know, to remind people, look, in the bigger picture, look, this is something bigger. It isn't about whether I agree or not agree. It is how it is, and I'm bound by law to abide by this. And in my experience, I often find people have like, oh, okay, because they realise this isn't a personal interaction, a personal positioning around them. It's something much bigger. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that.
Excellent, thank you. So again, it's really nice to get both perspectives. So I appreciate you guys for joining. Now, as we may have mentioned, there are 2 or 3 more sessions coming up, but if you enjoyed this session and you wanted to watch again, you can actually participate again on Thursday at 3 p.m. We have put another session time, and we're just experimenting at the moment. We know that shift work can be quite challenging within the industry to see which time caters to more workers and also employers. So Thursday at 3 p.m, we will have a repeat of this session 1, and then session 2, 3, and 4 will be in the following months. The next session that'll be coming up is understanding and releasing anger and frustration, which we know is a human condition, feeling frustrated, feeling irritated, and not knowing what is going on, and we'll be giving a few different tools to help manage that. Just quickly, David Irvine in the group has just been fantastic, and given the pressures of hospitality within mining, this is very good to share with the industry. So thank you for sharing that as well. Again, from Wayne, asking the police when they arrive at a venue to assist with enforcement is also a great tip. So thanks for sharing that one as well, Mike. So we will leave it there today if there's no more questions. Thanks again. As mentioned, my name is Paisley. I'm the coordinator. So if you do have any questions, you can head to our website and you can email us directly. And I look forward to receiving some feedback as well. You should receive a survey. So please feel free to take a couple of minutes and just let us know how you found the session, and maybe even your favorite takeaway tip. Just quickly, Tim, to everyone, hi, please could you send me some further info? I would like to get it out to my networks. Sure, you'll notice that we've recorded this with an MP3 and an MP4, so we will repurpose this information, and we'll find a way to get that out to you guys. And again, if you would like to send that to your network, just let them know they can participate on the Thursday as well at 3 p.m. That is also available. So we'll leave it there today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paisley. Thanks, Michael.
Have a great day.
You too.
Okay, bye.